We all know about the Titanic, a famous ship struck an iceberg and then sank. Although not exactly like that. But have you ever wondered why was this Titanic even built in the first place? Just to give you a hint, no, it was not built so that it would crash into an iceberg and then sink so that we could make some famous movies about it. In the beginning of the 20th century, transatlantic shipping was a hit in the European shipping market. And at the same time, in the USA, there was a famous banker named JP Morgan. And this Morgan guy was no joke. He owned lots of businesses in the USA and influenced market prices. Talk about monopolies. Not only that, but during the Panic of 1907, he actually saved the American monetary system from collapsing. So now Morgan wanted to monopolize transatlantic shipping. And to do this, he had a very simple plan: buy out as many transatlantic shipping companies as possible. So in 1902, he called a meeting of shipping magnates in New Jersey, and in this meeting, he purchased 3 American and 3 British shipping companies, and he established his trust known as the International Mercantile Marine Company, or the IMM. International because not only it contained American and British companies, it also had profit-sharing relationship with German companies. Back in Britain, White Star Line and Cunard Line were not only fierce rivals, but they were also the 2 greatest shipping companies in the country. And the British Admiralty was worried about who will give them additional ships in wartime ever since the IMM purchased the White Star Line. And that's because the IMM was an American company, and it was now the parent company of White Star Line. Even though Morgan had promised the Admiralty that all the British flagged ships will be available for wartime effort if needed, the Admiralty still needed more support, so they decided to back White Star Line's competitor, the Cunard Line, by approaching them with an offer of £2.6 million loan with 2.75% interest rate that was payable in 20 years, along with subsidies to operate the ships that they would build. But the condition for this was that the ships must reach at least a speed of 24 knots and built according to the dimensions provided by Admiralty so that they could easily convert this ship into an armed merchant cruiser in wartime. Now, in hindsight, this wasn't a good idea because later in World War I they would realize that ocean liners are terrible for this job. But at this point, they hadn't tried much, so from their perspective, they were being creative. Cunard Line agreed, and in 1907, both ships, Lusitania and Mauretania, named after ancient Roman provinces, sailed on their maiden voyages. So these ships could make the Liverpool to New York journey in just 4 to 5 days, but they had a problem as well. At full speed, their second and third class spaces would sometimes just become uninhabitable because of the vibrations. And White Star Line decided to capitalize on this, and instead of focusing on speed, they decided to focus on passengers' comfort. So in those days, the Blue Ribbon was an unofficial prize that was awarded to the fastest ships, and White Star Line decided not to care about it. Mauretania had this record and they had no intention of winning this at all. Instead, they decided to build 2 comfortable ships. These would be named Olympic and Titanic. And Olympic had a maximum speed of 21 knots till its refit in the 1930s, and Titanic's maximum was 23 knots. Now compare this with Mauretania's 28 knots and Lusitania's 25.6. So obviously now from this you can realize that the theory that Titanic was trying to set a speed record when it sank is just falsehood, because the record couldn't be broken at all. Their maximum speed was 23 and Mauretania, the record holder, was 28 knots. And as per the historical agreement between Sir Thomas Henry Ismay and Gustav Wilhelm Wolff's uncle, the contract for these 2 ships, which would be named Olympic and Titanic, was given to Harland and Wolff shipyard in Northern Ireland. And actually there was an agreement between these two people that each and every White Star Line ship would be built by this shipyard in Belfast. And this is an agreement that was followed all the way till White Star Line shut down. And that's how, ladies and gentlemen, the legend was born. Thank you for watching.